This video is made possible thanks to the support of our fantastic patrons. You guys are truly awesome. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Law of the Land video, brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex, and with the upcoming set Theros Beyond Death fast approaching, we thought it was about time we focused on the lore of one of the oldest mono-white planeswalkers we've got in Magic. No, not you, Gideon. Jeez, just because you sacrificed yourself and got a happy afterlife, you think you're the only white planeswalker that anyone cares about. Get back to Pioneer where you belong. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, today we're delving into the history surrounding the champion of a literal god, Elspeth Tirel. So, without further interruptions, let us begin. A long time ago, on a plane far, far away, young Elspeth was terrorized by beings known as the Phyrexians. Phyrexians are harsh and cruel creatures obsessed with the concept of perfect life, so much so that they dominate other worlds in order to achieve it. Elspeth's home was one such world. She, as you can imagine, did not have an easy childhood. Torture and hard labour were how the young girl spent her days. It was during one particularly nasty session of prolonged torture that Elspeth, at the tender age of 13, unleashed a powerful spell to save herself, which had the unexpected effect of igniting her planeswalker spark and transporting her away from her home to the plane of Theros. Elspeth wondered at this amazing world of gods and heroes and envied the seemingly peaceful life she saw before her. You know, away from the whole daily torture thing. It was here on Theros that Elspeth would pick up and scarp her away with the sword of Perforos, the god of the forge, which he dropped in a battle with Heliod, the sun god. It was only during this time that Elspeth met and befriended a young squire named Daxos, before she left this world, trying to find a proper home for herself. These will be important plot points later on, you would do well to remember them. And so on her journey across the multiverse, Elspeth eventually arrived at Bant, a shard of the plane of Alara, and this, like a well-tailored suit, fit her just perfectly. At the age of 17, Elspeth joined Bant's military forces, rising quickly through the ranks and eventually becoming knighted for her deeds. One day, however, this idyllic life began to fall apart when a Leonian planeswalker fell from the sky in front of Elspeth's outpost. After nursing the newly introduced Ajani Goldmane back to health, she thought that maybe they could be kindred spirits. They could stay on Bant together and have a future as warriors together and be part of. He completely rebutted her and left, leaving a dire warning of the end of the world. Bit rude, really. But world-ending prophecies do tend to weigh on a girl, and try as she might, Elspeth could not ignore the seeds of worry that Ajani had sown. So she set out to investigate, and found a Grixis incursion force terrorizing the countryside and, well, incurring stuff. Elspeth fought them off, only to then encounter another wave of Grixis soldiers back at the castle which she served. It was during this battle that her favourite squire was killed. And you know how hard it is to find good help these days. We can't all have Podrick the Ladyman Payne now, can we? And so Elspeth understandably became rather upset. Unleashing her full power, she resurrected her squire and wiped out the enemy forces. The victory earned the planeswalker some newfound respect from her soldiers, but this came at the cost of her sigils. Breaking Bant's laws of warfare meant a lack of trust from the other people around her. However, a lack of sigils was the least of Elspeth's problems. The Conflux had begun, an event where the shards of Alara were colliding. Parts of Esper, Grixis, Bant, Naya and Jund were all coming together and colliding. And Elspeth, our knight, was caught right in the middle of it. It turns out Ajani's warnings were more than just idle talk. To aid in defending her adopted homeworld, Elspeth left to assist Rafik of the Many in a fight against the invading Esper forces. During this conflict, Elspeth and Rafik were able to beat back the Esper soldiers and even a huge demon named Malfegor. who is actually super important to the story of the Conflux, but will be completely skipped over here for the sake of brevity. Sorry, Malfagor. But even after this great victory, Elspeth still felt empty, and was reminded by all this violence that Bant was not her true home. This was compounded by the growing unease of her soldiers, who had become increasingly distant following Elspeth's display of her true power, and so leaving behind the armour that bore her knighthood, she planeswalked away into self-imposed exile. Lacking purpose, Elspeth decided to battle the creatures that dwelled in Urborg in the fighting pits to help satisfy what had now become a need for action. Little did she know her one-time Leonin acquaintance was tailing her. Pun intended. Ajani tried to convince Elspeth to return and defend Bant, but she refused. Unable to persuade her, Ajani gifted Elspeth her discarded Bant sigilled armour before planeswalking away. Isn't he thoughtful? Later that same day, another planeswalker visited Elspeth. Koth, a Vulshok human from the plane of Mirrodin. He asked Elspeth to accompany him back to his homeworld to stop the Vaal Phyrexians once and for all. To do this, they needed to find someone named Karn, and after a brief heart-to-heart, they set off for Mirrodin. However, before departing, Koth came upon another planeswalker, Venser, who was tampering with some old Phyrexian technology. This flew Koth into a rage, encasing Venser's head in a stone mask which was so last season's design. Using this, Koth convinced Venser to join them in their journey across Mirrodin, and so the trio set off on their quest. Upon arriving on Mirrodin, Elspeth was haunted by her past. You know, deep-rooted childhood trauma and all that. This led to Elspeth bailing on her two companions and wandering around for a bit, until a Vulshok shaman took her in. This shaman then promptly told Elspeth to stop whining and go act like the goddamn 6-mana planeswalker she knew she could be. Unfortunately, her two comrades were ambushed and captured while she was off having her third act Disney moment, but Elspeth swiftly broke them out of prison with the power of friendship, and like literal magic and swords and stuff. Following this, the trio then travelled to the Vault of Whispers, and into Mirrodin's core in search of Karn. Here they met the one-armed cyber boy himself, Tezzeret, who actually turned out to be quite helpful, letting them leave with a former prisoner, Melira. Melira was a Mirran born with no metal on her body, who could very well bring about the end of the Phyrexians. So that was nice. Pretty chill dude, really. Further making their way into Mirrodin's core, the three planeswalkers and Melira were ambushed by a large group of Phyrexians. The group had all but defeated the assailants when the last lingering Phyrexian uttered with his dying breath, "But wait, there's more!" And the quartet of good doers were swiftly captured by a second wave of gnashing warriors. However, through some literal Scooby-Doo hijinks, the unlikely allies escaped again, and enacted their best Mole People impressions by going further into Mirrodin's caves in search of Karn. They eventually found the Silver Golem himself sitting atop his throne in a fantastic Thanos prediction by Wizards of the Coast. But alas, the Iron Giant was completely tainted by the Phyrexian oil. Venser, fearing his own imminent death due to his long-standing illness of not being important to the plot anymore, gave his life and spark to Karn, both freeing the Golem and allowing him to break free of the Phyrexians' control. With their Golem now free, the Planeswalkers and Melira went forth to lead a brilliant rebellion against the Phyrexians and drive them from Mirrodin, reclaiming the plane for the free people of... Oh wait, sorry, my mistake, different script. They got absolutely destroyed so badly, Elspeth had to planeswalk away whilst dying from a fatal injury. Oh dear. Awakening on the plane of Theros once again, Elspeth found herself in the Temple of Farika's worshippers. She was being healed by the good people there. Now, see, you can be black and green and not be jerks, Golgari. Take note. Whilst this was going on, Elspeth wrote a letter to her old pal Ajani, asking for some help with the whole, life thing. Once fully healed, Elspeth journeyed off to try and find and understand the gods of Theros and their abilities. To help with her sword? I honestly don't know. Maybe just a side hobby to not think about the impending doom spreading across the multiverse that she's been powerless to stop twice now, maybe? Maybe? Elspeth arrived at a temple of Heliod, to which the sun god himself decided the most reasonable thing to do was transform her sword into a spear, despite having no knowledge if she can even wield a spear, call it Godsend? 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 Godsend. And tell her to deliver it to Meletis, a place pretty far away from their current temple. So Elspeth took her one-time, now full-time BF Daxos along for the ride. Along the way they slayed the Pelucranos, the World Eater, which upon arrival at Meletis meant she was met with the grace as Sun God's champion. Sometime later, Elspeth and Daxos took part in preventing the fall of the city of Akros by a Minotaur legion. With the strategy of a certain planeswalking satyr, the people of Akros were able to retake their city, and Elspeth and Daxos, now deeply in love, fresh off the heels of victory, were able to finally settle down together happily ever after. Poof, no, this story is based off Greek tragedies, emphasis on the word tragedy. Whilst they were asleep, Xenagos decided for his plan to work, he needed Elspeth gone. So, conjuring her worst memories of the Phyrexians that nearly killed her, Elspeth awoke in a frenzy, lunging out and killing Daxos. Elspeth fled into the woods while Xenagos behind her usurped the victory party and used the revelry to ascend into Nyx, becoming a literal god. Be sure to check out our Xenagos lore video for more information on our newly found god revels. Thinking his champion had somehow been a part of this, Heliod looked to kill Elspeth now. So it was not going great for her at this point. But thankfully for our heroine, she was able to once again meet up with her old friend Ajani Goldmane. Together they decided to fight Xenagos. The pair, armed with the god-killing spear, travelled to the realm of the gods, Nyx. Here they confronted and killed the god rebels in a spectacular fashion, and Elspeth offered her life in return for Daxos's, an offer the god of the dead eagerly accepted. Upon leaving Nyx, however, and returning to Nykthos, and remember, Greek tragedy, Heliod was waiting. Taking back his spear from Elspeth, he used the weapon to deal the planeswalker a fatal blow, killing her. But we're not quite done ripping off Hercules just yet, because in the realm of Theros, death is just another adventure. Now trapped in the underworld, Elspeth plots her escape, hoping to reunite with her lover, back in the realm of the living. And that is it for our lore video on Elspeth Tirel. What do you think of our knight-errant, and what do you hope the next set brings for her? Also, what lore video would you like to see us do next? Whatever your thoughts, be sure to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. It really helps the channel out a lot. You can also follow us on Twitter @4commander. Or if you really like us, you could consider becoming a patron of the channel yourself. Links to both are in the description. And as always, we will see you next time.